Well, we just watched Shaking a Singapore Spear, and now here we have the filmmaker himself, Hans Rahl, with a very interesting story. Um, you actually moved to Singapore to teach.
Right, yeah, that was already 15 years ago now. And originally, I come from Germany, as you can hear from my weird accent, and it's still there after 15 years in Singapore. Uh, yeah, I came here to teach actually at the School of Art, Design, and Media here at Nanyang Technological University. And with teaching, I continue my career as a filmmaker, as an independent film director, which is very much supported by the university, because it's of course good if you stay a practitioner, because otherwise what you're going to teach the students, right? And this specific film, I want to say, is actually something that emerged in conjunction with a research I was carrying out together with the Shakespeare Institute in Stratford upon Avon. And our idea was we wanted to find out, by employing contemporary digital media, what is the interest of young Singaporeans, digital natives, if you will, in Shakespeare today. And we had the idea, okay, let's go and interview young Singaporeans about what Shakespeare means to them, how they were educated in school. Do they actually like it? Do they find it relevant, and so on? And then after this has been done, add animation to the mix, and kind of like be quite imaginative and playful with the comments, while still keeping the authenticity, if you will, intact.
Yeah, which I think that's what makes it such an enjoyable documentary to watch, because of course you're bringing so much together, because one, we get an insight into how young people think about Shakespeare. It's always wonderful to discuss Shakespeare, but also, for an international audience to see how Singaporean students, view someone from, a great writer from England. It's a lot of times their perspective was very refreshing and new to me.
It
And then
is, yeah.
and then you add in the
It is.
animation, and it's visually more dazzling than your average than almost any documentary you'll see. So really, you brought so much together. You made it just a really wonderful treat for the audience.
I'm very, very, very pleased to hear that. And of course, that was exactly my or our intention while making this film. And what is interesting is that of course Shakespeare and Shakespeare's works are very much a topic in Singapore, because there's of course coming from this influence of British culture, which is still quite undeniable in Singapore. And English is of course also the premier language everybody is learning and is speaking here. It's a major tool of communication. So actually that's a very, very important part of school education, and everybody has been somewhat engaged, confronted, involved with Shakespeare. And I found also, I agree with you, I found it very refreshing how different all the answers are, and which range all the way from basically not so interesting to the outmost Shakespeare enthusiast. And I found that a very nice basis also then to go with animation on top, and if you will, comment on the facts and find a way there you can at the same time keep the spontaneous and the very authentic answers, but they'll also add an extra layer of information, but also comment, and add humor to the mix.
Yeah, so always at a festival, like if we just shown this to an audience and we'd had you here in Los Angeles in our theater, I'm sure someone would have asked you, how long did you shoot interviews of the students, and just how many interviews did you select from?
Right. I mean, actually, we pretty much have everybody we selected in the film, you know, so like we have, it's not only it's in majority students, but we had also like, you know, a few people who are working already, you know, and we were also looking at, you know, equal gender and ethnicity representation from all across Singapore, because it's like really as some of the audience probably knows, it's quite a cultural, diverse environment here, which is great, you know, because on top of the Asian component, if you will, you get this very diverse mix of opinions on Shakespeare from different perspectives. And the shooting itself was all, for the interviews, was all done in one day. But then the animation, as the nature of animation goes, that took a long time. So kind of like almost 2 years with a small team of a total of, I think outmost we were like 4 people. And so that is typical, that the actual live action shoot is quite fast. We shot against green screen and then had all the opportunities to come in with the animation later. In the beginning, there is, of course, there are the sequences in Stratford, which were shot as the very first thing. And we were really going, I mean, with just a small team, it was just me, as you can see in the film, and a very small camera crew, because I was doing the sound myself, as you can see in one of the scenes. Then we were shooting the scenes with Michael in Stratford upon Avon, because we thought it would be a nice idea to start at the birthplace of Shakespeare, move to Singapore, and go back again.
Yeah, that was very nice the way it bookended it. And did the idea come from you? Did it come from Avon? I'm sorry, Stratford upon Avon. Where'd the original idea pop from?
I mean, the original idea was mine to begin with, and but it developed. I mean, the idea to conduct these interviews, you know, and then work with animation along with it. But then, of course, a lot of input was given by the team. A lot of input was given by Michael Dobson, the Professor Michael Dobson, who is actually the director of the Shakespeare Institute. So it evolved in quite natural ways. A lot of input, you know, actually what questions to ask. You know, for example, that was something which was discussed a lot with the Shakespeare Institute, and he also has a long-standing connection with Singapore, with both big universities here, NTU and NUS. So that was a very crucial part of the process, and his input in the beginning was very important. And also, you know, as you can see in the film, he's a really nice guy, and just also incredibly funny, you know, also in a very, and also what I think adds to the charm is you have his absolutely incredibly posh, if you will say, Oxford English. You could print almost everything he's saying. And then, of course, later on, you go into the different iterations of a language, you know, with the Singaporean interviewees and so on. So I think it also adds a very interesting mix to the whole thing.
Definitely. And I mean, for an audience here in the USA, you know, we're not going to get to go to the Shakespeare Institute, you know, so it's, you were getting a glimpse into that world, as well as a glimpse into Singapore and this multi-ethnic city that somehow exists in Asia. It's kind of an amazing place. I actually have a high school friend who lives there, and
I mean, it's quite an amazing place in the sense that really what I find is quite extraordinary here is there is such a natural multicultural, peaceful coexistence, which is, very much in our school here alone at the university, we have 16 different nationalities from all over the world, I mean, from all different countries from all across Asia, all across Europe, North America as well, of course, and then South America. So it's kind of like really a representation of the global microcosm, if you will. And I think we also wanted to reflect that in the film a bit, and the other side is really that there is a kind of historically grown connection and a very friendly connection still between the UK and Singapore, which makes this topic really resonate in both countries. And we thought also it would just be really also a fun visual topic to connect the birthplace of Shakespeare, where also the Royal Shakespeare Company now plays all the major plays, and then connect it visually to Singapore.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, the international aspects of that city are certainly a result. I would think a British person would point out to us that there was a time when the sun never set on the British Empire, right? And so they brought people from all around the world throughout their British territories. But yeah, it makes for a really fascinating documentary, I think.
Oh, that's great to hear. I mean, that's the most rewarding thing, of course, for a filmmaker, to hear that, basically the things you have in mind. And also I have to mention all my great collaborators, all my great animators here, who are have all been working in this research and film project for several years, and who brought in a lot of fantastic ideas. So Alvin Tay and NG Sue, and so it's always a team effort, animation. And it's also, I think it adds to the film that you also had Singaporean animators also work on the animation, which I think is another important component. I'm a big friend, which I do throughout all of my work, of this kind of like cross-cultural, or cross-cultural and interdisciplinary collaboration, because that really enriches your work. And I think it's also huge fun, because you get all of these different perspectives in.
Absolutely. That's funny because we're nearing our 15-minute point, and I always ask before we finish one of these Q&As, are there any collaborators you want to mention? Because I certainly wouldn't want to end this before you mentioned everyone. I did want to ask, the animators that you brought in, were any of your students?
Yeah, actually, the ones working on these projects, all of them have been my students at some point, and that was also a great opportunity for them after finishing their undergraduate studies. I mean, I mentioned Alvin and Anka's or NG Sue, and then there's also Ko Su Mei and some others. I mean, it's always that some names might escape you. Oh, I also want to mention Andrew Scott Bell, who did the fabulous music. Great film musician, actually from the US. Actually, he's living in LA. So it's kind of, LA is there as well. And a very multinational, and multicultural team. And then, of course, huge thanks go also to my collaborators here in the research, Daniel Jernigan and Sia Hoksoon, who's our fellow professors. And then last but definitely not least, Michael Dobson. I already mentioned him several times, the director of the Shakespeare Institute. I mean, without them, it really wouldn't have been possible.
Well, please communicate with everyone involved that the jury here at a film festival in Los Angeles just was delighted by it and gave it the highest marks you can give. And and we are very appreciative that you submitted it.
Well, thank you for selecting the film, which is great, you know, because I mean, obviously, I mean, I really appreciate also the effort you take, you know, the communication with the festival is just fabulous, you know. I mean, you can all, I mean, I know many festivals, you know, and certainly you're at, you know, you're at the top, you know, top ranking in terms of, you know, organization and, you know, responsiveness and all of these things, and it shows and it tells, you know. And the film has, oh, are you still there?
Yeah, you froze for a
Yeah,
moment
okay,
for
yeah.
me
So,
too.
and the film, and the film is really, you know, is kind of like it's growing wings now, because you know how it always is, you know, like after the first festivals, good festivals like yours, and then it's also going to be in St. Louis and so on, you know. So later and more festivals are coming in. So it's my experience that you always get this nice avalanche developing, you know, because once you're in a few good festivals, you know, it will, you know, become more and more. And I appreciate this very much, and we're all very happy to have been selected by the festival. Fantastic.
Well, it's our honor, and I've heard that from other filmmakers. They say you accepted us, and then we got into a bunch, and I always shake my head and I go, why? I don't understand that, because I would, you know, if you asked me, would any selection committee pass on shaking a Singapore spear? I'd say no. They'd be foolish to pass on this film. If you show documentary, this documentary has this beautiful, original mixture of things that of cultural value, and I don't know. I can't
Well, it's
pretend to understand.
I couldn't be happier that you see it that way. And actually, you know, I mean, I have to say that actually just in the last 3 to 4 weeks, you know, I think also the kind of like selection season is kind of like kicking in. It's very often like this towards the end of the year. That now it really gets going. Yeah, but it's my experience too, that sometimes, you know, you get selected by good festivals, and it creates this kind of wave you can ride for quite a while. Because sometimes it's just, you know, knowing this myself as a jury member of some festivals, you know, you would sometimes also time constraints or whatever, you know, which sometimes prevents uh, good films getting in, and all of these kinds of things. And this is always helpful, and we're very, very thankful for this. And just, I mean, all what you said, that's what one is making films for.
Well, thank you so much, and it was a pleasure to get to talk to you and talk about your film.
Okay,
And
great. So I guess we will we'll notice when the, you know, the virtual festival is on and so on, right? So
yes, we'll
yeah,
keep
yeah,
up the good
fantastic.
communication.
Okay, so that all worked absolutely flawlessly and very good. You know, couldn't be happier about it.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's really must be really late in LA, or is it like kind of?
Not too late.